matter to Senator Warren from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to all of our nominees. Good to see you here today. So, Commissioner Goldsmith Romero, as chair of the FDIC, your job would involve not only helping to prevent bank crises, but also cleaning up after them when the banks fail. You've had decades of experience as a financial regulator, including getting up close and personal with teetering banks during your 10 years as head of SIGTARP. In the fallout from the 2008 financial crisis, Congress created a $700 billion fund called the Troubled Asset Relief Fund, Program, or TARP. It was designed to stabilize the financial system, and you led the oversight of that huge fund for a decade. You also managed SIGTARP's $45 million operating budget and its hundreds of staff. By all accounts, you did so with incredible success, recovering over $11 billion for the American people. In fact, I understand that for every dollar your office spent, the American taxpayer got a $29 return. That's pretty good. Commissioner Goldsmith Romero, your work at SIGTARP required you to review the quality of bank assets, confidential examination reports, management processes, and compliance with federal regulations. So how does that compare with the kind of work a bank examiner does at the OCC, the FDIC, or the Federal Reserve?
It's very, very, very similar, Senator. I appreciate that question. So we would go in just like a bank examiner goes in. In fact, sometimes we'd grab the operating system and go through the banks. We'd look at what led up to the call reports. We'd trend out the call reports. We'd see changes in CAMEL's ratings. I mean, we would go deep into these banks. I think the difference is that we had more time to look at these. We dealt with a lot of failed banks, troubled banks. We would determine the cause of the failure. And then when we would determine the cause of the failure, if we could hold some bankers accountable for that, we would seek reimbursement to the FDIC for losses to the Deposit Insurance Fund. That's harder for bank examiners to do this. And then we had a higher standard that we had to prove in doing our work.
All right, and that's where your $29 to $1 invested came from, holding these folks accountable.
Yeah, this is how we got our great return on investment.
Good. It seems like pretty useful experience for the person named to lead the agency in charge of dealing with failed banks. In fact, I can't think of better experience. The last Republican who was named to head the FDIC had no experience in dealing with failed banks. Ms. Goldsmith Romero, you ran SIGTARP at a time of extraordinary upheaval in the banking industry. Can you estimate how many troubled banks you dealt with?
Hundreds. I mean, there were more than 700 banks in TARP. We were constantly working with them, trying to understand their health and their condition and risk that they faced. And then we investigated and went very deep into triple digits.
Okay. So you spent years digging through the guts of troubled banks and compliance with banking and securities laws. You kept some open, others you ended up closing, and that experience is pretty much spot on for somebody to lead the agency in charge of monitoring the banks and cleaning up the ones that fail. Commissioner Goldsmith Romero, we know that there are workplace issues at the FDIC. During your time at SIGTARP, there were some workplace complaints filed. Should that be a red flag that you are not a successful manager?
No, Senator. You want to have a process that people feel safe using and that they actually do use and they're not fearful of. And that does not exist at the FDIC. But you also want to look at the results. And in 11 years, we only had one finding against us early in my tenure, and I took it seriously and addressed it. So ultimately what you want is to set up an environment of high dignity, professionalism, respect. Employees feel supported and valued so that they'll come in and they'll give 110%. And that's how we got such great results at SIGTARP.
Yeah, well, I very much appreciate both that you have thought through these issues and actually have extensive experience with it. These are critically important economic positions that the nominees before us are eminently qualified to fill. I'm sorry I don't have time to talk with everyone, but I really appreciate your work here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.